Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Flex Network. I'm your host, Flex Shane. Find me on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. I'm joined by my boy, as always, at Alan Seslowski. How you doing, brother?
All right, man. Hello. I'm ready to. We missed last week. You were doing something where the people were clamoring for a pod, and I forgot where you were. Like, where did you go last week that we missed a week?
I took my kid to a little theme park mall. It's got like a nice water park, indoor water park, and like a little. It's called Galaxyland. So just like some rides and stuff like that. So it was just kind of a boys' weekend. We went for 2 days, the two of us.
Sounds like it's a prime petri dish for coronavirus.
Oh, it was perfect. Absolutely.
Okay.
I was like,
so Shane,
carrying around the sanitizer.
So you are in quarantine right now? Is that what's going on? You're in quarantine?
That is why I am podcasting right now, because I'm quarantined in my basement. That is correct, sir.
All right.
Yeah. So you were off traveling as well.
Yeah, no, I have some family in Central Florida. You know me, I live in Northern Florida. So, but I'm back once again. Here we go. There's some really interesting things happening in the world of fantasy football, which I'm sure you're going to want to get into.
Absolutely. So, gentlemen, ladies, what we want to talk about today is we want to talk about a little bit of Bestball. You know, we've done a few now. Both of us have gone through. We were actually in a Bestball together a couple weeks ago, which was kind of fun. But I just want to discuss some of the players that you found are maybe some value plays. I'm thinking right around like the 7 to 12 rounds. And then just maybe some just general team anatomy, how you like to build your team so far.
Yeah, well, when you talk about value in the 7th round or later, there's one player that comes to mind. And, half of the room is going to totally disagree with me. And I'm in the command center. That's what the comment says from Mike Walker. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah,
what's going on, Mike?
That's right. So when you talk about values in the 7th round, running back, as you know, dries up so quickly in these best ball drafts. And literally, when you get to like the 6th round and you've shifted one or two of those early rounds to other positions, you're like, oh my God, I need a 4th running back that literally has any shot of real playing time, or else you're going to be grasping at Duke Johnson and Carlos Hyde. And yeah, there's some guys that have chances, but Sony Michel is the guy I've grabbed in every single draft. He's readily available in the 7th round. The reason he's available there is because he had a very disappointing year last year, but he's only going into year 3. He was a 1st-round pick of the New England Patriots, and they are going to, at this point, I don't see a situation where after this year they're thinking about picking up a 5th-year option for him. They are just going to run his wheels off this year. And especially if they are bringing in a new quarterback or they bring back a 43-year-old Tom Brady, they know the key to their success to winning that division is running the football. And that is going to be at least, I think, 225 carries from Sony Michel. And if you can get him in the 7th round, literally in every single best ball draft I've done, that's my guy.
You can so his best ball it's just best ball 10s guys that we like to use. His ADP or his draft spot is 92. That's mid 8th round right now. So yeah, if you want to take him, half a round early sort of thing, that's absolute value. And you know what? I mean, I think in general, everybody was pretty disappointed by his season, but he was still pretty close to that 1,000-yard mark. He had 912 yards. He had 247 attempts. That is not bad. And he still had 7 touchdowns. So it wasn't like he was an absolute total time. He didn't really catch the ball. So the Patriots just weren't in the same position to score as they've been in previous years. And that's kind of where these plotter, I'm going to call it what it is, these plotter running backs like Sony Michel make their hay, right? They can get the touchdown.
It's just so funny because, like, when he came out, him and Sony Michel and Nick Chubb were on the same college team. They both went to Georgia. And when they came out, Sony was actually picked ahead of Nick Chubb. And he was considered the dynamic running back. And Nick Chubb was the guy that was considered a little bit of an injury risk with a knee problem. And it's been the exact opposite since they've come out. Sony Michel is the broken back, the one who's been labeled a bust for fantasy. And Nick Chubb is literally a 1st-round startup dynasty pick. So it's just amazing how they've had a Freaky Friday and sort of switched places.
Yes, I don't know. And Nick Chubb looks special right now, doesn't he? Like, if you could take him, say, where would you rank him in relative to this year's, say, top 3, top 4 running backs? Would you take Chubb over all of them? Would you take him over everybody except for maybe like a Jonathan Taylor? Or how would you sit in that?
Oh, you mean if Nick Chubb was going to be in this rookie class?
Yeah, or say for example, somebody's trying to trade you they're Nick Chubb, and they're going to offer you
for
like 1.2 or 1
yeah,
sort of thing. You know?
I would likely take Nick Chubb over the 1-1 or 1-2, but I could see why somebody wouldn't. So I'm not going to make a hard stance on it, but he's in that conversation. He's an established running back who's probably going to lead the NFL in rushing more, or at least be in the top 2 or 3 more years than not. Obviously his upside got a little capped with the Kareem Hunt edition last year with the passing, but I mean, he's a proven back in the NFL and an emerging offense. I think that you would take him over almost any prospect.
Well, that's actually an interesting just thought in general, is that people love the shiny new toy, right? Mm-hmm. But at this point, if you're still looking to trade any of the rookie picks that you own prior to the NFL draft, you have to kind of be aware, okay, what do I want? Do I want the upside of the unknown, or do I want somebody who's a little bit tried and tested, and like what you're getting with Nick Chubb?
Well, I have 1-3 in a dynasty draft we're in. I mean, it's a super flex, so I likely will be targeting a quarterback there. But it would be interesting in a regular draft for me to try to make that offer. I'm in another league. I think I have pick 5, and I doubt that somebody would give me Nick Chubb for that. In a 1 QB league, but it's an interesting thought exercise as well.
Yeah. So a guy that I'm actually really interested in targeting right now is because what I'm starting to learn is that early on in the draft, you really want to hammer those running backs. We talked about it a ton in the last show, but essentially you want guys who have guaranteed roles in their offenses. And that's why those guys in the first couple rounds are being taken so early. So a little bit later in the draft, so like you're targeting your Sony Michel, which to be honest, I don't have any Sony Michel shares, and I love that. Mm-hmm. But a guy that I'm targeting right around him, so he's at pick number 690, so 90, right around the start of the 8th round, is Darius Slayton. Yeah. This is, I think, the wide receiver 1 on the Giants team. The kid is still pretty young. What I love, though, is that this was the guy that we were talking about in the preseason last year, and he was somebody that a lot of teams picked up. In fact, I'm pretty sure you had him at some point on our team, on one of your dynasty teams,
and dropped him.
And he had, well, I mean, that's you have to make tough decisions, right? Because we're changing the rules, but we need taxi squads. That's the reality. But anyway, so he became available. He had a bit of a slow start to the season, but as the season ramped on, I mean, this is a guy who got better and better as the season progressed. He had 2 games over 30 points last year, and he's showing you with the what's his speed score. He had a 4.39. That's a 95th percentile speed score. He's quick, so he can get those boom plays. Plus, he's starting to show that he's probably going to be the number 1, I would say, in that offense, and so he's going to garner the targets as well next year. So if you can get this guy in the 8th round, realistically, I mean, he should be probably discussed in like the Terry McLaurin type ranges. And I think you're getting about a round and a half of value here on Darius Slayton.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you in the sense where he's a great value where he's going in the 8th round, but I'm going to disagree with you in the fact that it's a foregone conclusion he's the number 1. Everything you said and all your observations are accurate. He's obviously the most dynamic player in that offense, and he's obviously the future of that receiving core. That said, Golden Tate, who's an alpha veteran who still has a lot of use, and Sterling Shepard, when he's healthy, are still guys that are going to command 85 targets each at the minimum, probably 100 targets each. And then add in a healthy Evan Ingram, who's good for 75, 80 targets. Saquon Barkley is one of the best pass-catching running backs, and I'm not sure how much is left over for Slayton. Now, that said, I think he's a great pick where he's going. But the thing that I think that I would proceed with caution is where he to push him up with that Terry McLaurin tier on talent is legitimate. With opportunity, I'm not as sure. But I think it's a great value pick at where he's going.
So on that same thought then, if you like Golden Tate potentially to kind of become that alpha once again, he's going to pick number 119.
Yeah. So
you're talking about value plays right now. I would say what's pick 119? That's pretty much the end of the 10th round. So that's pick. When guys are often driving like their second quarterbacks, or he could legit be your wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside, right?
Yeah, I mean,
that yak machine.
You could probably get him as your wide receiver 4 in some leagues. I mean, he's I'm in the draft I'm in right now. We're in the middle of the 11th round. He's still on the board.
Oh, there you go. That might be somebody you might want to target.
I got a question for you.
Like
as far as drafting defenses in these best ball drafts, Where are you targeting them? Are you going for one of the elite defenses, the New England, San Francisco? And I did target them early in one league. I think I got them on I went early on one. I got one at the 12th round, but the first defense just went off the board in one of the leagues I'm in the 11th round. I thought that was a little early because usually at this point, the defenses that are atop the rankings end up disappointing anyway. So are you like a last round defense? Or where do you usually target your defenses?
Oh, 100%. So last year, I changed my strategy. And so I actually used to listen to Scott Fish had a show on SiriusXM. I think he still does, actually. And Scott Fish used to be somebody who was involved with the best ball. So prior to last season, he essentially ran a lot of different types of data and scenarios saying, okay, which teams were the most successful based on how many defenses they drafted. And what he found that some of the teams that were the most successful on average had 3 defenses. And a big part of that is just the fact that defense any given week, for the most part, it really is heavily dependent on, let's call it luck/fluke kind of plays. And that's really what a fumble for a touchdown is. Interception is a little bit different, right? But, like a pick six, those are the sort of situations where they have to be the situation has to be perfect, right? So for any of these defenses to boom in on any given week, really any team in the NFL has a similar chance to get a boom week. So if you just kind of cut your, play the odds a little bit, you get 3 defenses any given week. And that way on your bye weeks, you're at least going to have 2 defenses going. So because of that, and because of just the general randomness of the position, they're my last 3 picks typically.
Yeah, I mean, and that I think is smart. I think because think about this: with these best balls, you're basically gonna get 3 of one of the single positions. Meaning, you're either gonna have to choose between 3 QBs, 3 tight ends, or 3 defenses. You can't take 3 of both unless you're sacrificing serious depth at wide receiver and at running back. So. And I guess it really depends on how you draft. So if you take an elite tight end, George Kittle, you're probably going to end up with only 2 at the position. If you take same thing with quarterback, if you take one of the the top 5 QBs, chances are you're only going to have 2 QBs. Whereas if you took in the middle tier or the late tier, you end up with 3: Jared Goff, Ben Roethlisberger, and Ryan Tannehill, or some combination of that. But if you can figure out a way to manipulate the draft and take 2 at both of those positions, then I think what you just said is dead on. Getting 3 defenses gives you a real leg up. And that said, I know we were going to talk about players, but is there any of those defenses that are going in the last 2 rounds that you particularly stand out, or are you just kind of throwing the dart and saying, hey, any of these guys could get fluky on any given week? Because there are a couple defenses that I think might have a decent chance in the late rounds.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm looking at the last ranked defense. So this is in reverse order: the Bengals, the Dolphins, the Cards, the Giants, the Lions. Out of all those, I kind of like the Lions the best. I mean, typically the Lions have been a pretty solid defense.
They got Matt Patricia.
They got Matt Patricia, who is, I mean, you could argue that he's, Belichick's the defensive guru, but he kind of just managed it. But Detroit can have a competent defense. I like to target the Houston Texans are number 24, and the Carolina Panthers are number 25.
Yeah,
I think that the Panthers were sneaky decent last year, really just for upside plays. I mean, the Jaguars. The Dallas Cowboys, who last year were probably a better real-life defense than an actual fantasy defense because they just didn't really score the touchdowns. I mean, these are all competent defenses in the second half of the 30 teams.
Yeah, and I think I want to add on to something you said about Detroit's defense. There's a million mock draft scenarios out there right now, and it's all speculation because no one even has finalized their boards at this point. The teams are getting their boards together. But I saw a scenario where the Lions draft their best defensive prospect at number 3, and then trade future assets to get the 7th pick from Carolina, who's, by all reports, you hear all the rumors that they're trying to set themselves up for a full rebuild. So if they get pick 3 and pick 7 and get 2 elite defensive players, because we already know on the top 7 picks, I think it's a safe guess that 4 of those guys are going to be offensive players, including, So if Detroit can get the 2 best defensive prospects in the top 7 picks, their defense may just be better than everyone thinks. And if you can get them with the last pick of your draft, all of a sudden you have a live defense. So I like that pick. I think I'm going to use that in this best ball.
I really like that, actually. And, now that I'm kind of thinking more about it, if Matthew Stafford comes back next year, for the Detroit Lions. They can really fling that ball. And they've got some pretty solid guys. I know we talked about Marvin Jones a lot. He's one of our favorites just because he's kind of all reliable. I actually just got him in one of my best balls. I want to say in round 10 as my wide receiver 3, and I'm totally happy with that. But the Lions are a team. I think he's got 1 year left.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's got 1 year left. But like the Lions are a team that if everything kind of clicks, they can put up a lot of points. And that's another thing you like to look at in your best ball defenses is just the teams that have good offenses means that if they get up in games, the other team is going to have to throw the ball a little bit more. That creates opportunity. Anytime you get the ball in the air, it's a little bit more like it's a higher probability for, say, an interception than like a run play, let's say, right? And that is how you score points, and that's how you get, pick sixes, which will help win you a week with a defense. So I'm actually, the more we've talked about it, I think that's going to be one that I'm absolutely going to start targeting.
Yeah, there was another defense that, and again, I don't want to spend the whole time talking about defenses, but
of course, yeah. Hey, this is important, man. Like yes. This can help you win a league.
Absolutely. And there was one team when you were reading from the bottom up that you omitted, and it's actually a team that I was going to bring up is the Washington Redskins. They were actually a pretty good team last year. If they stay at pick 2 and take Chase Young, they're only going to improve an already great defensive line. So they're also another sneaky pick in the 18th, 19th, 20th round when you're targeting your defense.
I like that. Okay, Al, so before I do want to chat just a little bit about rookies, but before we get to that, because we didn't have a chance to chat last week, you've done a few best balls now. Has there been some teams that you've really loved that you started to draft, and what sort of anatomy, like, are you targeting, so say all things being equal, are you targeting running backs early? Or are you waiting at like what's your builds right now?
Yeah, for me, I'm always a running backs early player just because the scarcity of the position, and I'll reach on running backs in those early rounds, knowing the within the early draft community, it's no secret that rounds 3 through 7 are loaded with wide receivers. So yes, so I've built 3 teams 3 different ways, but each of those ways has 2 of the first 3 rounds I've taken running backs. In one of the teams, I've built it with Lamar Jackson as a second round pick. In one of the teams, I've built it going tight end heavy, and now I'm in the draft I'm in right now. I've basically gone running back and wide receiver. And I've liked all teams. There's many different ways to get to the path. At the end of the day, here's the big secret, Shane, to how to win best balls. Pick the right players, right? So sell high, buy low, right? No, and I think of course, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, speaking about choosing the right players, a boy that you were high on, like from the middle of frickin' January, boy got paid. Our guy, Austin Eckler, I think he's been a favorite of both of ours.
Absolutely.
I was saying early to mid second round. You were saying, guys, he's going to be a first round pick, and you were saying this literally like before the Super Bowl. We did the way too early rankings.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Austin Eckler got paid. He's guaranteed $18 million. And then it's a $24 million contract. I know you were a fan as well. We were both on it early. Yes. And what's funny is I put up a poll on Twitter right after he got paid. And I said, now that Austin Eckler is locked in as a workhorse back, I mean, they still may draft somebody, which again, I don't think that's a problem. He's proven that this year he had 90 catches for 1,000 yards, but I asked in the poll, what round should Austin Eckler go in redraft or best ball? Round 1, round 2, round 3. Only about 20% of the voters said round 1. And then it was basically 38, 40%. I couldn't believe that. I would expect a lot of people to say round 2. I couldn't believe that like 35, 38% still said round 3. So which again, shows me that there's a buying opportunity in Dynasty, but then again, Dynasty players might be a little bit more cued in. I think he's locked and loaded. I took him at the 12-13 turn in my latest best ball.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, he's the kind of player that he's showing you what he can do. We always kind of worried, is he going to be a guy that can actually be an every down back? But, he's clearly being paid to be the lead in that offense. They've got Justin Jackson, who I believe he was recovering from an injury still.
I mean, he's a backup,
He's a backup, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I could see them drafting, I'm not one of the top few guys, but I could see a very good running back going there. I mean, just going down our list, my 6th or 7th ranked running back is Zach Moss. He's a little bit more of a pounder. He could be there. Someone like AJ Dillon, who is a heavy back, but doesn't, he would be miscast in the NFL as a banger. He's probably a bit more of a speedster, believe it or not, as shown by the combine numbers. And we'll get into that when we do rookie talk. Either way, I fully expect Austin Eckler to get another team member in that running back room. I'm just not worried about him because of the elite pass catching skills.
Yeah. No, I mean, so in my my current best ball that I'm in, I had the 12th pick, and I actually elected to go Josh Jacobs, and then deciding on, do I want to just, go RB? Devontae Adams was still available. I'm like, I mean, he could legit be the wide receiver 1 this year, so I went with Devontae Adams. But yeah, I mean, Austin Eckler didn't go until 2.6 in this draft, but I think this was prior to the news because we've been going on for about a week and a half now. This guy.
Yeah. So do you have where are you at on the quarterbacks? How do you handle that in your best ball? Are you waiting, or are you trying to get one of the elite guys?
Man, I'm waiting. So generally speaking, I like to target Jameis Winston right around that 9-10th round, either as my QB1, in which case I would probably consider, maybe taking 2 more, kind of like, doubling up, tripling up really, really quick, or ideally as my QB2. And I say that because he is, like, we saw what he did last year, right? There's still obviously the uncertainty of the situation, but he's a DGAF, man. Like, he don't care. So he's kind of the best ball quarterback you want.
Yeah, I just don't think it's certain that Jameis is going to be back in Tampa. I mean, he could be on a new team, new coach, new everything. So, I mean, there's probably a 10% chance he's not a starter, right? There's probably a 10% chance that he go. What if somehow, some way? Yeah, actually, I was going to say he goes into Chicago and they get some competition for Mitch Trubisky, but I mean, that's probably unlikely. But I mean, it's just there's some uncertainty. Go ahead.
Don't you think if there was a certainty, the fact that he put up how many yards he put up last year,
great for fantasy.
Wouldn't he be going like probably in like the 7th round or like even the 8th round? Like Kyler Murray was early 8th round. I got Russell Wilson at 7.12.
Yeah, I mean, Jameis Winston right now is not guaranteed to be a starter week 1. I mean, he probably will be, but I would say, it's what is it, like a 65% chance he's back in Tampa, maybe, I don't know, 30%, 20% chance he's in another team, and then maybe the remaining percentage he's not a starter.
Well, we should ideally know soon, though, anyway. So we're recording this on March 8th. The new league season starts, I believe, March 18th. Mm-hmm. So about 10 days from now. And I would assume that if the Bucks do not sign him, another team will probably want to scoop him up sooner rather than later. Who knows? Maybe some coach out there thinks that it's gonna take what they can do to make this guy a great player.
Yeah, I mean, I can see a scenario where I mean, if you're the Colts and you always hear a lot of Phillip Rivers to the Colts talk, but wouldn't you rather have Jameis Winston than Phillip Rivers?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Wouldn't that be so good for a guy like Paris Campbell too?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's what you want. That's kind of like the fantasy player's dream situation. Yep. I haven't really heard much about that, so who knows? But man, crazier things have happened.
Yeah, I think either way. I think that the quarterback play in Indianapolis will be better. Jacoby Brissett, by all accounts, is playing hurt. He played pretty good in the first few weeks. Just to steer off course a little bit. But another wide receiver I'm targeting late is Zach Pascal for that reason. I like him as a player, and I think that whatever the quarterback upgrade is, that he will feel the effects of that. You wanted to talk rookies the last 10 minutes, right?
I want to talk about rookies. All right. So we didn't chat last week following the combine. We just wanted to get your quick and dirty analysis about what you like, some of the players that we talked about early on. Mm-hmm. I mean, who is your number 1? I believe it was Dobbins before. So I'm curious to know who your new number 1 is, and maybe just talk me through it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll start with the RBs.
And I'm curious to where you are as well. And and I'm curious where you are as well. So before the combine, I had J.K. Dobbins as my number 1 running back. Head to head with DeAndre Swift. I mean, it could either or. You could talk me into either one. J.K. Dobbins didn't do a lot of the testing at the combine, and he will do it at his pro day. So for now, I moved Swift ahead. Now, Jonathan Taylor obviously wowed the combine. He is atop a lot of major analysts' rookie running back board. I did put him at number 2, but I'm probably going to move him down a little bit. Not because I think there's anything wrong with Jonathan Taylor. It's just that the other guys I like a little bit more, and we could go into some depth, and when we break these guys down one by one. But Mike Clay just put out, ESPN just put out his rankings today, and he has, Clyde Edwards-Helaire as his number 1 overall running back, which I don't think I don't think that's that crazy of a take. I really don't. And again, landing spot will determine a lot of this, but Dobbins moved down slightly because he didn't test. Jonathan Taylor upticked slightly because he blew the combine away. Landing spot ultimately, but I still think DeAndre Swift, if I was put in a draft, would be my number 1 overall running back.
The thing about running back is that it really is landing spot dependent. To be honest, though, I think that any of these top guys, the teams that take them are going to take them early, and they think that they're going to use them because they take them early. So it's almost like they're setting up their own future. I like it.
Swift and Dobbins are bulletproof to me. I think that no matter where they end up, they're the 3 down running backs that are going to catch the football and score a lot of fantasy points in any situation. Swift looks like he's going to be he's probably going to lead the league in rushing some years, but I just feel like that he's going to be paired with a pass catching running back, and not that he can't catch the football. He can. It's just that that's how I'm envisioning it, and I could be proven completely wrong. And I wouldn't have any problem with someone putting Taylor as number 1. But it's just Taylor was getting about 30 plus carries a game, and that was part of the reason why he didn't catch the football. Just there wasn't enough plays to budget out passes for him. It's not that he can't do it.
He still had 24 catches. I mean, he had the same number of catches that DeAndre Swift had last year. They both had 24 catches. Mm-hmm. Now, catch percent, he actually had fewer targets. I mean, he only had Swift caught 80% of his targets, whereas Jonathan Taylor was 68, which means that he got more targets, 35 to 30. So for those who say he can't,
no one's saying I'm certainly not saying he can't. I'm just saying the thing that separates these guys, the thread of it is the lateral agility for me. Okay. Swift is one cut go, and I think that's amazing. He's going to have a great NFL career. DeAndre Swift looks like a joystick. He looks like Tariq Cohen when he does those spin moves, and I think for me that's what separates him and makes him bulletproof in any system. So who are your top 5 in order?
So I'm pretty much I'm going boring here. I'm sticking with Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift. Then I've moved Cam Akers up. I had him before. I wasn't really sure. Yeah. And then I think I've got to go Dobbins, but I'm not going to lie to you, man. The fact that he didn't really test, it scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was because he thought he could lower his draft stock, but to me, it's like you want to go in and show, hey, Jonathan Taylor, I'm better than you. Right. And you got to go and compete. And so I think that kind of hurt his draft stock a little bit, which could affect where he gets drafted. I still think he'll be a second round pick, to be honest. But and then, I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like we were just talking about how much we love Austin Eckler. CEH had 50 catches last year with an 87.7% catching percent. Yeah. That is high efficiency, people.
Yeah. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he did it for 1 year. He doesn't have the multi-years of production like Taylor or some of the other guys, but it's not just the size of the sample, it's the magnitude, and he wasn't a great offense. But again, he's not a speedster. He's not – I just think he has such a high floor. Like he's going to be running back 14, running back 15, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, not in the class, but on the year for many years. He's going to be one of the best RB2s. So you're not getting a home run with him, but I feel like there's such a high floor with upside, of course, to be a top 8, top 7 running back in the league. But with his pass catching ability, I just feel like he's a can't miss, and that's why you have to push him up for fantasy.
Yeah. So playerprofiler.com has his best comparable player as Chase Edmonds. So that's a guy that we like, and we think that could have the opportunity to be a starter. So, man, CEH, he showed what he could do last year. I mean, he produced. Like, what more can you knock on the guy? He produced. Absolutely. Okay, so on the wide receiver side,
you want to go first this time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm probably sticking with my generally earlier decisions. I like CeeDee Lamb as the best wide receiver in his class. He's a special. Like, I think at this point, anybody who's listening to this podcast knows and saw that clip of him at the combine when he was doing that sideline drill, and that circus catch that he made. Yeah. I mean, he's got the ability to high point the ball and adjust his body. And I was debating back and forth with Flex Matt last week off air, and I kept like, I'm like, he looks like DeAndre Hopkins with some of the catches, and Matt thinks it's hyperbole, and who knows, maybe it is, but I'm excited for this kid. I think he's going to be amazing. We talk about a bust-proof prospect. I think he's going to be a bust-proof kind of guy, and I think he's the first wide receiver off the board. So another guy that a lot of people are really, really high on. To be honest, I know you're high on him too. Henry Ruggs.
Yeah.
He had an impressive camp, or combine, I should say. He ran the 4.27, which everybody was thinking maybe he could beat John Ross. I mean, shit, like that's pretty damn good. Anytime you're running the 4.2s, that's amazing. But man, we talked about this with the Geek a couple weeks ago. I'm a little bit gun shy on these smaller speedster wide receivers in terms of having like an every down role on my fantasy team. Like, am I going to be comfortable with them every single week, plugging them in there? And I'm not totally comfortable with that, if that's fair. But at the same time, he's not like 185 pounds. I think he's like 196 pounds or something like that.
Yeah, no, that's good size. That's actually not bad size at all. So where do you have Ruggs? He's your what? Where do you have him ranked right now before the draft?
I have him as my wide receiver 4 right now.
Okay,
I would probably go probably between Judy and Rager. I know before we talked about T. Higgins was the guy that I liked. He's another guy that it's tough to trust. But I would say probably CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, just in terms of like the types of players that I think are going to have instant impact, just because they're the kind of guys that teams will try to get involved. And Jalen Reagor, man, I spent yesterday morning rewatching all the Jalen Reagor tape because he's kind of he's been a darling of a lot of these off-season people right now. I feel like his combine was pretty good, right? Like, it wasn't a lot of people saying it was fine. It was fine. I think that it could have been better. I think people thought he was going to be faster. It was the conversation for a big part of the offseason was who's going to be faster, Ruggs or Reagor, and it wasn't really even a competition. Let me just double check here what his actual speed was, because let's see here. So Jalen Reagor. This is fantastic radio. But his 40-yard dash was 4.47. So, for a guy who's 206 pounds, you thought he'd be a little bit faster.
No, that's real good speed. So this is how I think CeeDee Lamb is solidified himself pre-draft as the top of the board. Judy, who his drawing comparisons to Calvin Ridley, seems like a safe prospect, a good route runner. He, I'm okay with him as the number 2. I mean, I don't think that anyone's going to dispute it. And there's going to be a Judy versus Lamb debate all the way up into the draft and then through the draft. And no one's going to have any good reason to rank the guy over the other than your personal preference. You could cite all his different reasons outside of them going to a really bad situation. But anywhere they're each going to get, if they're given the opportunity is somewhat equal, you can make the argument for either one. For me, Ruggs is sure, he's a speedster, but I think he's going to be a hell of a football player and great for fantasy specifically, where he's not just going to be a two-target Sean Jackson type of player. He is the alpha on that team of Alabama. Even though Judy is considered the main prospect coming out of there, I still think Ruggs is the wide receiver 3 in this class. And T. Higgins didn't test. Again, you dock Dobbins a little bit. I would think that T. Higgins has to suffer the same docking, but these guys will test at their pro day. I'm warming up to Justin Jefferson in the top 5 from LSU. I mean, he had incredible production. Again, just as a sanity check, I see Mike Clay has him down at ESPN as wide receiver 7. So he's moving up. He was probably wide receiver 12 on most people's boards. That's a guy I'm looking at in the top 5. And someone that the trash man was on from the very beginning of the process. I think Denzel Mims, I'm just going to put him where he's headed anyway. Most people have him right now around wide receiver 9 or 10. I'm just going to move him up to my wide receiver 4 right now, get a little ahead of it. I'm off. I teach in a middle school and I have off on my spring break this week. So my priority 1 starting tomorrow is I'm going to be watching a lot of Denzel Mims. So nice. I'm not officially putting him at 4 until later, but if the guys that I trust, and again, we're still breaking down some of this stuff. I've watched a good amount of tape. And again, I'm learning how to break down tape a little bit better each year. You make some mistakes and you realize, okay, this is what translates to the NFL. This doesn't. But I think Mims is going to certainly end up in my top 5 and going to be a hell of a steal at the 12-13 turn in rookie drafts.
I mean, Denzel Mims, yes, if you can get him right around that end of the first, early second round, I think that's an absolute steal.
It's
like he's going to be.
There's first round buzz on him for the real NFL draft already. So I don't think that he makes it out of the first round in the real NFL draft.
Ooh, I would love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, here's a guy that he played well at the Senior Bowl. He showed out, and that's what you want. Guys like Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp, these are guys that went out and they produced at the Senior Bowl. And that tells us that there's a pretty good opportunity for him to be successful. Again, playerprofiler.com has his best comparable as Chris Godwin. He is fast. He catches the damn ball. He's got an insane wingspan. This is the complete package, man. Like, I would be comfortable with him absolutely as a guy that I pick up for my team, my fantasy team this year. So I love it.
No, absolutely. So, that might be a good place to pause. And when we come back next week, we could talk about the tight ends and the quarterbacks.
Sure. Yeah, it sounds like fun. So, Al, where can people find you?
On Twitter at Alan Seslowsky, AlanSeslowsky. And I'm doing, along with the podcast I do with you, do the podcast with DFS Army with the Geek. And we're talking season long. Just go to DFS Army's podcast feed, subscribe. And we're doing a lot of off-season content. You've been a frequent guest. Hopefully you'll do many more over the off-season as well.
Awesome. So please follow us on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. Please subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. Or I guess the best podcasts are the ones you want to keep secret. So maybe don't tell your friends, but keep following us all off season. We'll be talking best ball. We're talking rookies. And obviously, as the season approaches, we'll be talking draft strategies. So for Alan Seslowsky, I'm Shane Seeley. We are the Flex Network.